director, writer, star Theda Hammel. Co-writer and co-star Faheem Ali. And star of the show, John Early. I am so starstruck to be talking to all of you right now. So thank you all for the film. I'm going to dive right in.
We're starstruck to be here. It's very, very exciting.
This is, I think, couldn't have asked for a better closing night, note to round out this festival on, so thank you all. To get right into it, I wonder if you could speak a little bit about where this film came from. It's a story of community and of sort of a found family, maybe a dysfunctional found family, but family nonetheless. And it was, I know that you all knew each other prior to embarking on this project. And so in a sense, it seems like a film that was born out of community or existing relationships. Could you just speak a little bit about where the film came from, how you embarked on this collaboration, and just sort of set the stage that way?
Sure. I've known John for a long time. As long as I've been basically an adult, I've known John, and I knew that John would have easy access to this character. Like, he would find it very, very easy, and because the original idea was just this character of Terry Goon, a sort of like buffoon, who really valued these very basic domestic things that he just can't do for some reason, but like takes it very, very seriously. Like, it's not somebody who goes, oh, that's just the way I am. You know, I can't cook, I can't throw a party, nobody likes me. That's just the way I am. It's like, this is the worst thing that could have ever happened. And I've seen John play a variety of that kind of person, like,
and
over the years.
in real life, I think a little bit too.
No, in real life, John can cook exquisitely.
I oversalt.
But the original idea was just that character surrounded by his opposites. So Bahlul being the sort of main opposite, but everybody is opposed or parallel to him in some way, and so it got very complicated very quickly, and stayed complicated all throughout the writing, all throughout the shooting, and then all throughout the editing, right up until the end, when it really folded down and became, I think, more about Bahlul and his mother, basically, and this quest for a surrogate mother. And everybody is found to be unsuitable in some way or another, and so that's the evolution of the idea, I guess.
And you and Faheem collaborated on developing the story. The story is in itself so intricate, and so sort of the structure of this narrative that you're weaving is so multifaceted, and it's so, you know, alternately serious and hilarious and physical comedy, farce, commentary on sociopolitical realities, a period film about Brooklyn 2020 in the midst of COVID. How did you, could you speak a bit about that, the collaboration of developing this story, developing these characters, and how you juggled all of these sort of conflicting or potentially conflicting tones and bringing them together?
Yeah, I mean, we can, as soon as the idea of that character, of Bahlul, like, came into it, Faheem happened to be in the room, and I just sort of shouted across the room, what do I do here? Like,
the script originally
how can they be related?
Started as a 15-page script for John's birthday. And as a birthday present. And then the characters of Bahlul and Abigail were in there, and we had a series of conversations about how to build out those characters, their hopes, their dreams, coming from opposite sides. I think Abigail is on a quest for salvation through maybe spiritual tourism, and whereas Bahlul is coming from the other side, trying to find his identity and thinking that that identity might come from a source of inspiration being his uncle in New York, and a way to find his identity through this kind of interaction with that uncle.
Yeah, it really, the voiceover is a free, it's a source of freedom right up until the very end. So like the crafting of that voiceover, the original, like the draft in the original script was not satisfactory, I don't think, especially when we were putting the movie together, and what Qaher Harhash, who plays Bahlul, was giving didn't match the backstory that had been written up there. So there was midway through the edit this feeling that we had to tweak it, and that's really, I feel like, where we had these conversations about what a gay uncle might mean to a sort of queer kid in that position, and how that disenchantment might take place. You know, the hope and then the disenchantment, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And in some ways, I feel like the film is, everyone in the film is orbiting around Terry, the character of Terry Goon, and he's sort of this gravitational center of the film. And I think this character is very much in dialogue, John, with other characters that you have embodied and given life to, but you're doing something different with Terry, and I think you're given the space to explore a little bit more of a full person in all his complexity, and I'm curious, bearing in mind that Bahlul was kind of the fulcrum, the narrative fulcrum. This character of Terry, how did you build him? How did you construct him as between the three of you?
I'll take that. Well, I think the very first thing that I wrote in my little notebook, which I think I filled about half a page of total, but we had lots of conversations about it. But I think the very first thing I wrote was, "I'm still with her." And then the next thing was something like, "Everyone has a fucking septum piercing now." Oh yeah. So yeah, we thought a lot about Terry's being kind of a gay millennial Tony Soprano. The beginning of The Sopranos, he's talking about, what happened to John Wayne, and I think. Terry has just aged out of his sexual type. Just aged out. He probably aged out a few years before. He was maybe at one point a kind of milk-fed
aged out
twink.
of Leo's sexual
Leo's
type.
type. Sorry,
Leo
yes.
changed type.
Yes. And so I think he's feeling particularly raw at the top of the movie. We talked specifically, I think his gay identity, which had a lot of cultural cachet for him at some point in his life, and in the culture, in the 2010s maybe, its cachet is waning, and he's feeling very resentful of the rapidly changing world around him. Yeah, that's where we started with him. But I don't know. I mean, generally, I think Theda has always, as my friend and collaborator in various ways, she's always taken the kind of blunt, clownish thing I do on my own, in my own work, or in my daily life, and kind of teases out something deeper, or teases out like some sort of critique in it, and so that was I think that was why this was a birthday gift in some ways. It was like her taking what I do and putting it in something deeper and richer.
I love the Tony Soprano comparison, and I think it gets to a quality of this film that's so special, which is this kind of, much like The Sopranos, it is constantly this balancing act between very dark, sort of serious subject matter, maybe sort of epitomized in Terry's worldview. Terry's a person who takes the world very seriously. But it's a hilarious film, and it's a film that manages to find exactly what's funny about a serious worldview and about these very serious topics. And I'm curious about your approach. Again, these questions I'm asking kind of all of you, just seeing the film as just an expression of some kind of collective mentality. But could you speak a little bit about balancing those forces of kind of like very serious, very, ultimately unironic observations about the world that we're living in, delivered through this tremendous comedy of manners?
I think that Terry's pathos wouldn't seem as sad if he wasn't funny, because he's not tragic except as a funny kind of, you know what I mean, like a sort of pathetic guy. But in terms of juggling the tones, this is a. I could answer by saying that those are two things that you see side by side, kind of constantly in the culture. And my feeling now is that there is always something horrible and something deeply stupid, like happening simultaneously or right adjacent to each other, and like that was very much like the experience of Trump, for example. It was like. It was screwy and evil at the same time. That's one approach to it. But the real honest answer is like, I am compelled to be funny or try to be funny. Like it's a compulsion, I guess. And then I feel
often when you're being serious.
I feel yeah. And I feel I'm haunted by serious things, I guess, and so the balancing of those two things was a very difficult thing to do in the edit, because one could very easily overtake the other one. Like there were so many bad versions where they didn't kind of quite balance out. But I feel like I didn't give quite a satisfactory answer. But is there any?
Well, I think the characters are trying to express some truth about the world, or trying to express how they feel about the world, by trying to show solidarity or love and affection, but doing so in such a clumsy way. And that comes off in a very comedic manner, but also you can see the sadness of their desire not being fulfilled in the way that they want.
I think it's like in like a satire that you can, if somebody is in love with somebody else and they go, "I love you," and their love is a joke, then that is a sort of a bitter thing. And that's not really true in this case. There are people, they have a deep need that maybe it's love or just like companionship, or maybe it's even to feel like they're doing good in the world, and they can't do it any more than Terry can cook or stand up without knocking something over. Like they can't do it, but the need is sincere. So I guess that's where it sort of comes from.
Yeah, I think a lot of Theda's work, if you look at Nymphowars.
Please don't.
Sorry.
Please don't.
Please do. It does have a kind of beautiful, like, Theda's like among many things a Foley master.
I'm not a Foley. No, I'm a good sound designer.
Okay, you're good.
Foley is when you walk on you get the shoes on your hands and you go clomp, clomp, clomp. I'm terrible at that. So I can't remember the sequence of steps.
You respect Foley enough to know that you're terrible.
I respect the art of the Foley.
But that's why I was so excited about this. There's something very, there are like true unapologetic pratfalls, and there's banana peels, and a sound design that sometimes, it like highlights the kind of screwball-y things in the movie, and I know we over the years have been very sick of this kind of, past maybe 15 years, there's a lot of work that has been obsessed with like the blend of drama and the dramedy, what I was so excited when I read the script was that there was hard comedy and then like dead serious ideas, and that to me is what's like one of the most ambitious things about it. It's like it's just putting those things right next to each other and refusing to let them like dissolve into just nothing or into vibe or something.
I love that you connect it with the sound design and engineering, because Theda, in addition to being a podcaster, you had your start as a sound engineer, or
sort of.
working in
I never
sound.
worked. I mean, I got a degree that I never quite used the way I was supposed to, but I do have sound experience, and it has come in very handy in every stage of like filmmaking.
And if you paid attention to the credits, you caught that there was original music that you composed that is very much part of the sonic fabric of the film, I think. And so I'm curious, like the points that John was making about this sort of headbutting of comedy and seriousness. I think I'm curious, formally and particularly with an attention to sound, how you drew that out in the sort of texture of the film and what you were going for in terms of like the effects that you were in, beyond script, beyond performance. Like, how did you frame this story sort of tonally?
I think I wanted it to feel like a very loud thing could happen at any moment. Like that, so I guess there is, in order to have that contrast, like there has to be sort of moments of suspension it's like the avoidance of vibe isn't just out of a hatred of vibe. It's like it's like that that dynamic contrast in the sound can help to have that weird explosive moment, and it's always happening. Everything is always maybe a little bit too loud when John like runs into things or when the mirror falls on him. But then, as far as the music is concerned, like the music is really where the moodiness comes from. The edit without the music I felt like very proud of myself. I was like, wow, we did it with no music. Wow, that's so cool. And then I chickened out and put all this music in that actually I think helped bind it a little bit and was the most satisfying. It was definitely the most satisfying part of the whole process, because the kind of music that I've made, that I've done nothing with, really, I've just done it, always had a weird wonky wobbly sound and then a sort of serene, melodic, poignant thing. And as soon as that entered into the mix, I could make sense, I could justify how the movie actually was feeling overall. I was like, oh, okay, the music is in microcosm the same thing, same blend.
And
Oh, I have nothing.
I would say rolling it back to the level of to the shoot. You're all performing in this film. You're all not only participants in crafting the story, but in enacting the story, and in sort of this very intricate ensemble chemistry that you have going is what creates the texture of the film. And could you just speak a little bit about your approach to these characters and to working together as an ensemble, as this very fragmented ensemble, but nonetheless one that is coherent?
Well, initially, I had no intention of playing the character Ronald.
Yeah.
When it was written, we didn't know who would play this, and Theda had casted a few people.
I hadn't cast them.
You were interviewing, a few people, and wasn't satisfied, and asked me multiple times to play the role, which I constantly refused. But finally, I decided maybe I should rise to the challenge, and most of what you see on screen is just coaching from John. Honestly,
John gave really good coaching.
Yeah, everything comes from John, and I was really grateful for the opportunity, and I learned a lot from it. So it was a good experience for me.
I mean, I should also say that, there were gigantic dialogue scenes there that we, even with our tiny little budget, found some time to, or kind of made sure we had time to rehearse, which was so so nice. I mean, I've said this a lot before, but I come from doing a lot of comedy where I'm expected to just improvise, with 2 cameras, and there's just it deflates the energy. It makes sets just so uninspired, and this actually, because it was so dense and kind of theatrical and kind of like a little chamber piece, like we really, and especially because Qaher also had never acted, who plays Bahlul, and he's an actual model, so the 3 of us with that birthday scene especially, we rehearsed those scenes a lot, and that was just so nice. I never ever get to do that, but Theda and I come from theater, and I think we value that.
I have to shout out your performance, Theda. You're hilarious.
That's nice. My producer, Brad Becker-Parton, who is on set and is here presently, told me that he was very surprised when he saw the first cut of the movie that I was even giving a performance in the first place, because there was so little difference between how I was on set and how I was when the cameras were rolling. But I do think very homeopathically, subtly, there is a performance there, and it was a tremendous benefit to be distracted by all of the other things that were happening just outside the frame. I found it very liberating.
Acting's always this weird afterthought for Theda, which is it always when Theda's acting, I'm like, oh, it's easy. You know what I mean?
It's easy because I wrote it for myself to be easy. Because it's easy. The most fun thing is to just lie. Everybody else has a much harder job. Like John has to be desperate. Ronald has to be like polite and do all of these things. And Karla just has to sit there and like baldly lie to everybody, which is so fun to just do confidently. So no, I felt like I was writing to my strengths.
It's such a precise, the setting of the film is so precise, both like geographically, it's such a Brooklyn film, but it's also so specifically a pandemic era film, a 2020 film, in ways that are written into the script and the topics of conversation and Terry's anxieties, but also speaking to a particular cultural moment of the way that people are reckoning with wokeness or what have you. Could you speak about addressing that period from this remove of a few years and how you approached that distance?
Yeah, I think all the hot, like the really headline banner issues of that moment are sidelined in the movie, and it makes a lateral move into a domain that is a little bit less ripped from the headlines, but the concerns are still the same. So the concerns are still generational antagonism, identity, like conflict of identity, and like issues of the world. Like, so there is a repeated like binary of not a binary, that sounds so dumb. There is this idea repeated throughout the movie of the world. It's like the world is out there, and then you are here, and the question is like, do you like where you are? Probably not, especially for Terry. But like, I mean, does everybody like where they are at the moment in life? And you go, maybe not. Is there something better for me out there in the world? Can I encounter the world? Can I go out and have an authentic experience in the world without actually extracting something from it or trampling all over it or just being a mere tourist in the world? Do you know what I'm saying? And like, so the idea of this character who is stuck in place and very, very afraid to go out into the world for fear of either catching something or doing something wrong, that's how I feel, is like, that situation is enhanced dramatically by having this COVID premise. Because COVID, or this virus, is like the world. It's one of those moments where your awareness of the world is enhanced. everyone in the world is in lockdown. The virus comes from the world. It's not like one of those things that's happening over there. And then what it actually ends up doing is activating this person who would love, I think, actually to just stay at home, but now is a hero for staying at home. They're living their best life. They're being a great help.
And they
by
have
staying at home.
there's like a moral excuse for being like,
Yeah.
Which was a very, very strange thing about COVID. There was already something in the air, obviously. There was like a fear of each other that was already, really boiling. And then COVID gave us this externalizing kind of thing. It's just about health. This is just a moral. It's like, so I think, and it's bizarre the way things about COVID don't seem to explore what is such an obvious metaphor, which I think is a strength of Theda's writing.
I think that like the other thing that is worth saying is that the thing that it's hard to find a non-reactionary word to describe, like wokeness is such an unsatisfying word. It's like the politics of identity practiced by millennials on social media in the 2010s. At that moment, you could have an acronym maybe for it. But at that moment, there was a changing of the guard. That's what I remember, going out onto the street for the protest movement. It was very clear. It's like, oh, a whole nother generation has come of age, and there is a weird brackish, maybe a sort of personality clash in these gatherings, and you go, not only am I old, which I already knew that I was, but it's like you're getting by on the fumes, then you go inside terrified of everything for 3 months. You come back out and you realize you've gotten very old, and there are all these new young people, and you can't expect their political discourse to be a direct continuation of whatever was going on with millennials in the 2010s. Those politics of identity are starting to wear a bit at this moment in time. I think that right now, especially, that it's already a totally different equation. So, and in the middle of all of that, Terry's politics are extremely anachronistic because they come from 2011. They come from right?
Christopher Hitchens reference in there.
Yeah. He's like an ex-new atheist.
Gay marriage newly legal.
What?
Gay marriage newly legal.
Yeah, gay marriage newly legal. This is the greatest victory. This is the end. That is the end of history for Terry Goan.
And yet history continues.
Yes.
I'm sorry to say that I'm getting the signal that we're out of time, so we're going to have to wrap it up. I'm so sorry, but thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Maddie.